Hey everybody, welcome back to This Old Trike. My name is Preston. I'm your host. I don't know, I don't really feel like I'm a host. I don't normally say that, but I guess I am your host. Today, I'm going to start a new series. I have a number of series that have been started and not many finished, I suppose, but why not start a new one? Today we're going to talk about a buyer's guide for the ATC 350X. If you're going to buy a 350X, what do you look for? What are the things you need to be aware of and concerned with that you might see? So let's turn this around, and eventually we'll cover all the models. But today we're going to start with the best model Honda made, in my opinion. All of this is my opinion. Most of what I'm saying I believe to be true. I may be wrong. My neighbor's dogs obviously disagree with me on many things, like the fact that they shouldn't be barking right now. But let's talk about what to look for when you're buying an ATC 350X. Okay, so here's our hypothetical story. Let's say you want a 350X. You've seen them on Facebook. Your buddy has one. You grew up riding one. For whatever reason, you decide you want a 350X, and you start looking. Facebook Marketplace is the most popular and convenient place to look now. In America, there's Craigslist, which seems to be the former leading way to do it. Back in the 90s, you would pull your local want ad digest or look through the papers, or even word of mouth. But somehow you learn about a 350X and you want to go look at it. So that's kind of the background. Let's start from that point. I guess from that point, you've made some decisions. You either have identified the fact that you want an 86 with white plastic, because that's how they came, or you like the look of the red 85. Or maybe you don't care. You don't care what the color is. It could have Mire fenders on it, custom color, have no fenders on it. So that's something you need to decide when you're looking for a machine. What level of quality are you looking for? How original do you want it? What are the boxes you need checked? For me, as a collector, if I'm going to buy a 350X, I'd want it either better than this or something very complete at a very reasonable price that I can turn into something like this that has good bones, we'll say. For the collector, they probably want something with original fenders. These are original fenders. OEM, if you will, original equipment manufacturer. Sometimes you'll hear OE, original equipment. So that means the parts and pieces are either the same as what came on the machine, or they are made by Honda. They are equivalent, not equivalent, they are the same as what would have come on the machine. So in 85, your machine would have red rear fenders and a red front, white gas tank with that style wing. That's the 85 style wing, as is that. This is the 86 style wing. Red, white, and blue in lines. This has red, white, blue front to back. So you've decided on the color combination you want, or you've decided that you don't care. What are the things that we need to look for? Well, 85 is the first year of the 350X, and there's some common things that go on with an 85. I'm going to have to pull the fenders to show some of this, so give me a moment to do that, and I will be right back. Some of what spawned this video idea was the fact that my buddy Russ asked me to take a look at his 86 350X the other day, earlier this week, and put a value on it. And so I did that. It kind of gave me the idea that most people might not know what to look for or where to start. You know, you never want to see somebody buy a machine that's not a good value. So this is an answer to that. So on an 85 350X, this is the first year, so there were some things that they were figuring out, and they made changes from 85 to 86 to improve on those things. And one of the biggest things you need to look for on an 85 is right in this area, the frame would crack. And why would it crack? It would crack if that machine was jumped from high heights, landed hard. It would have a tendency to split right in there. Is that the end of the world? No. A lot of them you'll see built up around here, welded, maybe have something around the backside to give it strength, welded in. So that is a remedy to that issue, but that is a common area where 350X frames will crack. There's another area that you'll see right in here. This one doesn't have it, but you'll see hairline cracks right in here where they'll sometimes split. And I'd say most 350Xs I've bought have had that. I've probably had more 350Xs than any other machine. And that was a very common thing. I don't expect to see them on this, and I don't. This machine, as you can see, is pretty darn clean. It is not clean and original. It has been gone through by my good buddy Pat Farnham. He did that for the previous owner, 2 previous owners actually, and I've come to acquire that as it stands. I didn't do that work myself. Some areas you'll see, you know, if the machine has been abused a lot, like I was looking at the machine I was looking at the other day, this was really raised up. You know, it's slightly raised up as it stands, but it was significantly raised up. Had no grab bar on the back. You could see where the grab bar had been bolted on, but broke off here. That is indicators of abuse. You want to look for indicators of abuse. I've said this in a number of videos that one thing I like to do is take my finger, you know, and you can do this subtly and just, you know, as you walk by it, just feel the underside of the grab bar. Why is that important? Because if this thing was wheelied on a lawn or on pavement, it's going to leave rash. And there's no rash right there. And there's no rash right there. This grab bar has been painted. I don't know if you can tell that, perhaps powder coated, but that's too black. You know, that's like, you know, buying a 350X, you know, not 101, probably 401. These are black, it's like a black plating, so it's not paint. So that's an indicator that this has undergone some restoration. We're just looking for indicators. This axle, you know, they have that goldish color. This one's very silver. So that's another indication that this thing's been restored. This has that yellow chromate kind of color. Now that's how they would have come from the factory. You can do this and have it be too yellow because it's hard to copy that sheen that Honda had. I'm getting distracted. Toolkit, you want to see that the toolkit is, first of all, the box is present, and then if it's got all the tools in it. Does it have the Honda line tire pressure gauge? There's the toolkit. There's a little sponge that keeps things from rattling around. You'll notice this machine, the toolkit isn't there. I don't know if it was on it when I bought it or not. I put this grab bar on from my good buddies at ATC, Craig and Chelsea. Reach out to them for any grab bar needs you have, and skid plates and all the things. They are great people with great products. Where was I? So check your frame, check oil. You know, if you pull the dipstick and it's all milky and brown, you know, like a milkshake, like tan rather, not necessarily brown, that's a good indicator that you've got oil in the case, because they've sunk it in mud. That's hard to see, but that's nice clean oil. That's what you want. It's up to the right spot. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm leaking oil. So why is that? That bolt, that banjo bolt, looks like it is potentially a little loose. That supplies oil to the top end in a 350X, so that might have just backed off a little bit. I'm not concerned with that at first glance if I'm looking at this to buy. I know that this machine has had a new top end put in it, because me and my buddy Donnie Bizall did that. So this Honda Bond right here, you know, it's a little sloppy, not as bad as some people have done. Let's look at what this has. That's nice and clean. Pat Farnham's a magician, so of course he's got it perfect. Probably better than factory. This is from the factory. I don't think this has been cracked open. You can see a little trace of it right there. And here's some of it coming off. Probably just decreased the value right there. Okay, this brings up a good point. You can see the aluminum here. You can see the aluminum on that far machine. This motor has been painted, and these fins were not sanded off. But this is better than some of the jobs you see where all the nuts and bolts are rattle canned black. You'll see overspray on the frame. You know, that's the type of restoration that you want to run away from. I don't think this is supposed to be an acorn nut like that. No, it is. Take it back. But that's a 10 millimeter. And that's not. So we're already pointing out some things that aren't quite right, but be leery of machines that you have seen that are rattle canned, you know, where the motors are all one color. You can't see the heads of the bolts. That's an indicator that maybe somebody just is trying to hide something, do a quick flip. You know, you can see this. That's a fresh gasket. You'll see that line. If that's painted over, you wouldn't see it, but this tells me that the motor was probably redone properly. It looks good. What else? What else am I thinking? You know, there's basic stuff where these have metal gas tanks. You want to double check inside the gas tank. See if there's rust around the edge here, if there's a liner that's been put in there. There's a couple different liners. Let me talk about them real quick. So I only use 2 different products to line a gas tank, and my thoughts on this are the following. I've heard a lot of negative about the brand Cream, K-R-E-E-M, I believe. I don't use that. Red Coat, I've heard good things about Red Coat. I've heard bad things about Red Coat, but I don't like Red Coat because it is red. Cream is like a light tan, off-white, like a yellowy manila folder looking color. I will use either Pour 15 because it is a silvery metallic product, and I will use the Battleship Gray Caswell product. Caswell is a 2-part epoxy coating for your tank. It not only will line it, but it gives it some structure, some strength. If you have a spot that is kind of thin due to rust, you can buy some time with Caswell, and it will stiffen it up. It will span a 1/8 inch hole, I think they they claim. You can put tape on the outside and line it with that Caswell, and it's a hardier, more robust product. Pour 15 is great if you have, some weeping going on. And plus I like that better if I can get away with it because it's silver. But if you look inside the tank and there's like heavy scaling, it's kind of a gamble. The tank may or may not be any good. You don't know. So you might factor that into your negotiations. If you look in and it's super clean, that is definitely a positive, and factor that into your negotiations. So that's one thing. Let's talk about outside of the tank. So outside of the tank, like this looks good over here. A little ding or missing paint there. It's got a big wallop right here, and that's some heavy creasing. This is my rider, so I don't necessarily mind that on this machine. Obviously, I want as nice and clean and straight of a tank as I can get. This tank has been refinished to the proper color, which is more of a cream color, not the Shasta white of the 86. This is the Shasta white color. It's a brighter white, and this is original paint. So I will prefer an original paint tank that might have some imperfections like that paint chip and that there. I prefer that tank to this tank because this tank is restored and that other one's original. You see it doesn't have the warnings here like it should. Neither does that. That's the original tank, but they must have peeled the warnings, I would imagine. Different things to look for. Does it have original fenders? Now, Mire fenders can make a machine look really nice. I'm just noticing this. There's a crack there. I didn't notice that before. That one doesn't, and that's on my rider. I might consider swapping those tank shrouds. Those are 85 style tank shrouds. You can see this angle is more square. That's more of a 90 degree. But in 85, they discovered there was interference with the headlight straps. So in 86, they cut them back. You see, this isn't as 90. They don't come as far forward, so there's no interference in them anymore. But when you buy Mire tank shrouds, great products, but they are 86 style. So the trained eye can pick out a Mire tank shroud, tank scoop on a machine. And does the machine have the right rims? 85 has the kind of solid web rim, where 86 has the forged aluminum centers. Unique, 1 year only for them. I know that these are TRX rims. These are new old stock 350X tires on this machine, but they're not on the correct rims. Those are from a 250X or a 300EX. There's date codes right there. 610. So June of 2010. So that's probably a 250EX or perhaps a 300EX. That's a correct front rim. Does it have the yellow marking on the bolts? A lot of people go crazy for that. What is the condition of the forks? Like, these forks look a little weird, don't they? I think these have had some attention by Mr. Farnham, but I don't think he had perfected his method when he did these. As you can see, some rub here. They've seen some riding for sure. Because normally these are raw aluminum painted with a clear coat. You can see they're rough there. They come like that from the factory, but they have some machining marks up above. Factory fork boots are something that I always look for. You can still buy them, but if the owner didn't replace fork boots with factory fork boots, if you've got the Day Pro or whatever, off-brand you can get, that tells me the guy's kind of cheaping out. So what else did he cheap out on? you always want to look inside the air box, not just to see if it's an OEM filter, because that doesn't always matter. This does have an OEM filter, but look down at the bottom. Evidence of mice. Not a lot, but some. They come in right through the air intake, so I gotta vacuum that out before they nibble on that filter. That'd be a travesty. But the things you're looking for, does it have a filter? If there's no filter and it's wadded right full of mice, did the mice get past the filter and go up into your carburetor? This has a uni filter. The inside of this air box is dirty. Needs to be cleaned out. That's an indicator that I actually ride this one. Another subtle way to check for abuse is to, as you're walking around, feel the end of the brake lever and the bar end. If that's ground right off or busted up or missing, that's an indicator that this machine has been on its side. If you don't have the original levers, that probably means they were broken off in a crash. So there's, just indicators of abuse. You always want to look for your functioning, brake system. So the front works. Does the back work? Are they missing calipers? Calipers are very hard, especially front. You can buy Chinese replacements for the rear, but to replace a front caliper is extremely hard right now, unless there's reproductions out there. But OEM is always better than reproduction. Has it been upgraded to a 400EX carb? Is it the original carb? Is it missing the chain guard on the front? You always want to look on a 350X to see if the head bolts are intact. Not the head bolts, but the exhaust studs are what I mean. This has both. They're not, these are the correct nuts on an 85. They're acorn nuts on an 86. Those, if they are removed improperly, can shear. The one I was looking at the other day had two that were sheared, and it was, when he started it, it was leaking exhaust out the front. So just more indicators of use. This also has TRX rims. These tires are not original to a 350X. These are an OEM tire for a 250X or a 300EX. They're very close to the 701 Pro Vectors. These are 702. But they're not the same. A lot of people get excited about having the nipples on the tires. That means these tires have like no time on them, and that's cool if you're a collector. If you're planning on riding it, I would almost encourage you to buy other rims and tires to put on it and keep those nice, just because for long-term value, that's going to be the best way to preserve your value. What else? You'll see this brake hose is very white and bright. That is a reproduction I got from my good buddy Mike Palmgren at VMS Motorsports, Vintage Motorsports. He has perfect reproductions. He has reproductions for these and a whole host of other things. Rubber products. Reach out to him. Find him online. Find him on Instagram for things you may need for your restorations. You'll notice this one's kind of brown color. This is what an OEM brake line looks like in 2022. It's kind of discolored, but I kind of think that's how they were when they were new. This one's got a guard on the front brake reservoir. I don't believe this is an OEM Honda line option, just based on the design. I actually don't know if Honda line made that or if they were all aftermarket. This is a Honda line guard. All of these are Honda line guards. If your guard just has the outer frame, it may be Honda line, and this was an additional insert that you would get to put in there. Does your machine have the exhaust guard, the heat shield? Because that's an often missing thing that is hard to replace and hard to track down, can be expensive. Does it have the skid plate on the swing arm? Is the skid plate all bashed up into it? Does the kicker come out and click? Or does it just sloppily fall out and you know, because that, if you're riding one that's loose, this is actually kind of loose. Does it kind of work its way out and then poke you in the calf? Check for the tightness of the kicker. That one's gunked up a little bit, but it almost feels tighter. This has a super trap. That's about the only aftermarket exhaust, short of maybe an Empire, that I would be excited to have on a machine. If I can't have OEM like this over here, super trap is good with me. If it's a DG or if it's an RCM, Cobra, those are very loud exhausts, so I wouldn't want those. I'm gonna have to think about where I want to go next. Oh, I know where I'm going. You want OEM fenders. You've decided that. You buy one, but it's missing the mud flap. You think you'll find one on the cheap and put it on. I wouldn't count on that. These now are going for at least like $300, just the mud flap. Is that crazy? Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's probably 10 cents worth of plastic, but if people want the whole package and they need that, you're going to pay for it. Now these are OEM 86 fenders that I run on my 85 rider. If you are going to chase down a mud flap, you need to know that there's hardware involved, and that should have a threaded kind of knurled nut that goes up in there like this one. So that's missing. You can't even buy this hardware anymore. You got to get creative about how to do it. That's missing. Most of these are missing. Two of them have the screws with the kind of collared washer that goes in it. So you might have some homework to do to chase down even the proper hardware. Do your headlights and taillights work? If you have a machine that runs and it's got no headlights and no taillights, and the guy tells you, yeah, it just needs new bulbs, he might be being honest, and it might just need new bulbs, or it may need a new voltage regulator. I sold an 85 350X to my friend Dave, and it wasn't long after he bought it that it started popping bulbs. That is an indicator that you have a voltage regulator that has failed. So it's basically sending too much juice to your headlights. And what I would do is buy a new taillight bulb and try it out with that. Put a new taillight bulb in if you suspect you have a bad voltage regulator, and let that thing pop before you start popping expensive headlight bulbs, because those are definitely more expensive for the headlight bulbs. Let's look at this 86. So it's missing its skid plate, but I have it. I need to paint it and put it on. These tires are pretty worn. You can see what's left of that middle. So pretty worn means only about an eighth of an inch of tread, but that's enough to make them look like this. There's just a touch of dry rot. These are things, you know, that's maybe a touch plus now that I look at it. These are probably the original tires though. I have some new old stock tires that I want to put on this machine, just because I think it deserves it. This is probably the nicest original 350X I have. That thing is nicer and cleaner, but as I've already pointed out, there's a number of things that are not quite right on it. This, you'll notice, has a speedometer drive gear on the front with a cable that comes up here and goes nowhere. And that bolt has been taken out because I was trying to mount a speedo set up on this that I believe was for a 350X, but it turns out it was for a second gen 200X, and I need to swap everything out. But if you see maybe just this piece down here, you know, that would tell me that this at one point had a speedometer on it, or one was attempted to be installed for some reason. But more often than not, if you see a drive gear, it would be because the machine had a drive gear on it. What else can I think of? We've talked about the tanks. We've talked about light bulbs, fenders. You know, that's me talking about these as a collector. Let's talk about them running. So, right now I can tell you this machine won't run. It was restored with a motor that was stuck. Can you believe it? The gentleman that owned this, that had Pat Farnham restore it, did not care. He was using it for display only. He wanted it to look good because it was going to sit above his showroom in his dealership, and no one would ever know that you could not turn this motor over. Nothing. This went through a flood. I think 2007. I think it was Irene is when that came through town up here in upstate New York, and it got flooded. I might be wrong with that date, but or that the name of that storm, but that's when that machine saw water, and water got in and it stuck the piston. What's it like inside that motor? I don't know. So if you can't kick a machine over, that's going to be concerning, because that could be an easy fix. You could pour some Marvel Mystery oil in the cylinder and it frees up that afternoon and you're riding it the next day. Or that means you've got to take the head apart, take the cylinder off, free it up that way, only to discover, you know, your crank bearings are rusted up and it's full of rust inside. There's no way to really know without getting into it. It's barely got any oil in it as it stands. So, hard telling not knowing. This machine, another indicator I guess I've skipped on, you know, is that the only wear that I'm seeing on this? That's a good indicator that this is low hour. You know, I've tested the end caps. This barely has any wear on it. That tells me probably a low hour machine. These are probably original tires. They've only worn them off a little bit. And this machine's got that big sort of patch on it right there. What's it look like on this side? You know, that's more of what you're used to seeing. The one I looked at the other day had paint all, you know, this whole thing was spalled off. So it's either sat outside a long time or it's got a huge amount of use. What else do we need to talk about? But if it runs, like the one I looked at the other day, it started right up with a couple kicks. It had the original carburetor on it. It did not have an air filter. It would run on choke, but wanted to stall off choke because it had those sheared exhaust studs. I could see exhaust puffing out the header where it meets the head. I could hear that exhaust leak. I could see evidence of a hole in the exhaust because there was, you know, black soot on the shock and all that. I didn't hear any cam chain, you know, timing chain sounds. So it was a good sounding motor, except for the fact it had exhaust leaks. But I know to fix those studs, you could possibly get away with getting it out, you know, with the motor in the machine and putting a helicoil in there. But to do it right, you've got to pull that head. You got to take it to a machine shop and let a pro take care of it. I wouldn't want to do that myself. Another story I have of buying a machine, they told me It was really clean looking. They detailed it over the course of the winter, and I was looking at it in the spring, and they said it's just a bear to kick over. And so I agreed to buy it. I bought it, and before it was even out of their shop, I asked them for a 10mm wrench that I used to adjust the decompression cable because it was activating a little bit too slowly. So when you start that kick, you see my hand here, you want that lever up here to start at the same time. So that's cracking open the exhaust valve and letting you, it breaks that suction, the compression in the motor to allow you to kick that. So I made a quick adjustment. It kicked over like a dream, and they couldn't believe it. And that's how you can kick a 350X over in flip-flops. You got to kick with confidence and make sure you have a functioning decompression cable. You know, I always miss something. I think what I'm going to do is take a minute just to think about what I've already said, throw in something I may have missed, and then close this out. I'm thinking of something already, so give me just a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, a couple last things. Let's talk about seats. This is original seat. There's no cracks. There's no holes. There's no punctures. I don't know what this is. A little discoloration, but a lot of times you'll see like where the tire has been set here, because sometimes these are shipped with tires on them in the crate. So usually 250Rs is where you see that. But that's an original seat cover. That's what you want. This is a seat that has been recovered by Tammy Mosier at Cosmic Quads. That is probably the best reproduction you're going to see. But if you're looking for OEM and the OEM look, this is as close as you're going to get. But this is newer foam. Like, see how hard of a line that is? Compare that to this. This is just a softer roll. And that's the difference with the foam. The foam is a copy, but that foam, I think, is a little softer foam. But as far as the letters being straight and true and good, that's outstanding. This is your run-of-the-mill eBay seat cover. It has a seam in the front. It has a seam at the back. You can buy them seamless. When you buy them seamless, they fit. It's harder to get them to fit right. I've got a video that I've done on the struggle with that. A lot of times you'll see the letters kind of hump up on the side because it's hard to get everything in order. So if you're looking for originality, you want a seamless seat cover that, you know, what's crazy is you look at the corners here, they weren't perfect. I beat myself up on trying to get a seat cover perfect, but they weren't perfect from the factory. So that's how you know if one is a eBay seat cover, a very high quality reproduction, or original. How do you know if your fenders are Mire or original? Well, Mire have the my buddy Griffin up in Canada was just asking me about his fenders. He acquired a 1985 350X. He said, are my rear fenders original? The difference is Mire fenders have the mud flap molded right in. These fenders are made by injection molding. You know, they've got a big, you know, a bottom mold and a top mold that come down, squeeze together, and then a nozzle on a ejection machine blasts molten plastic into the mold. It fills all the voids, and they pop it out. And because of that process, that technique, you can have those towers on the back, like I pointed out, that how the mud flap would mount. You can have stuff like that. You can have this concave area. You can't get that using a thermal forming process. Like all this detail, how that comes out, you can't get that. You can't get this. A thermal forming process, like what Mire fenders would use, again, great quality products, because these are so costly to reproduce. Mire fenders are the best we're really going to get, and they're great. But you can't do this detail. They heat up a sheet of plastic, and it is sucked down and forms the shape of the mold that is in it. But you can't have the concave areas. They can do the mud flap molded right in, but they can't mold these attachment points. So that's why they do it. I don't know if any of that just made sense. I work around injection molders where I work, so that's my best way to describe it. But when you're talking about your fenders, to distinguish original OEM from Mire, it won't have the embossed warnings. It won't have this thing bumped out. I think they're doing that on 250R plastic now. It won't have any embossing like that, and it won't have the two-piece mud flap. The OEM front fender is more squared off and has crisper lines than a Mire fender. Mire fender is almost round in the front. These are just kind of one round line, not these extra contours. I think the last thing I want to talk about, though, as we close this out, are Frankenstein machines. You know, my rider over here is a bit of a Frankenstein. Like I said, it's an 85 machine, got 85 tank. It's got 86 rear fenders on it. It's got TRX, probably 250X or 350, I'm sorry, 250X or 300EX rims on it, on the rear. You know, if you've got an 85 with a black triple tree on top, that's an 86 triple tree, most likely. Sometimes people build clones. 85s are more common. They might want an 86. I had a buddy that I did an 85 350X for, and I made it look like an 86. So I painted the top triple black. I got 86 style decals. Get all your decals from Bruce Allman. He's a great guy with a great product and gets them to you quick. I put white Mire fenders on it. I put I put a seat cover that had ATC on the side to give the illusion of an 86 model machine. But what you can't hide, if it's all white, but it doesn't have the clutch cable come down and around the back side of the cylinder, that's an 86 motor. You know, if it doesn't have the cover like that's got the slots all the way, not the slots part way with this little filler piece. You know, that's one way you can tell an 85 motor from an 86 motor. You know, the cam chain adjustment, which is really hard to see, is kind of the short, snubby style on an 85. But on 86, it's the longer style. Pretty hard to see. What else? You know, if it's all white but it doesn't have the black triple, that's an indicator. If it doesn't have the embossed centerpiece on the rims, that's another way to tell. The brake setup, you know, that's unique to 86. Sorry, I'm not even recording what I need to show. 85's got this extra linkage and this extra mounting point down there. You know, that's black. Yeah, that's not right. Indicators of restoration. 86 has a bracket. Get in here. This bracket here that goes on a nub. So the 86 swing arm is unique to an 86. You know, we're crossing over into differences here. Like the 86 caliper has flat right here, where the 85 has the fluted or vented or whatever you want to call it. 85 has round circles here. 86 has this style. Four holes here. This series of grooves here. 85 alternates. 4, 3, 4, and those are all circles. So somebody tries to clone one, you know, if you got a trained eye, you can tell. You can tell if it's supposed to be an 86, but it's missing the gray cover on your steering stops that the 86 is supposed to have, like that. There's many ways to tell if you know what you're looking for. So I guess what this video didn't cover is if you're looking at something that's very, very beat, how do you know if you should walk away? That's a harder thing to diagnose because there's many ways that these can be beat or missing parts. You know, value-wise, it's hard to say. I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're looking to buy this, but it's missing the skid plate, you know, is that missing skid plate already factored into the price, the seller's asking price? That's a call that you're going to have to make based on your research and your location, and the value of this machine here in upstate New York is different potentially than the value in Virginia versus Florida versus California. You know, a lot of clean bikes still exist in California, so it might be cheaper out there. You know, if one of these was ridden in the salt up here, it can be a rust box, so hard to tell. But that's probably a good place to wrap this up, don't you think? A couple things I almost forgot, and they're very easy to do, and this would apply to any suspended machine. So 250R, 200X, anything really that's got a swing arm. A quick test to verify if your carrier bearings are bad or if your swing arm pivot bearings are bad. Just grab a handlebar and listen for any clunk sound or independent movement of the axle, independent of the swing arm, or swing arm independent of the frame. So this has good bearings. Same thing. You know, you're looking for play in the bearing on the axle, so that's good. That was something I know I missed. I know we talked about checking for ability of the front brake to work, and that works. You want to do the same thing with the rear brake to make sure the master cylinder and rear caliper are working. When you start the machine up, assuming it runs, you know, if it doesn't run, you have to make some judgment calls there. But if you start it and it runs, you want to give it time, see if it smokes. Maybe it smokes at the beginning but goes away. Would be an indicator that maybe your valve seals are failing a little bit. If it continues to smoke beyond that, then you might need rings. You might need a top end rebuild. You might have other issues. We talked about the kickstart decompression cable. There was something else that I was thinking of, and now that I can't recall. I think those are a couple easy things. You know, you could have play in the steering stem bearings here, but that's uncommon. Assuming it does run, you would want to test your headlights, high-low, on-off. There's some things that could be missing, like these. Like you see, this is broken. This is easy to get banged up when a crash happens, you know. But if this is missing, these are things that, to find those on eBay, you're going to pay, you know, a reproduction of this is almost $100, and it's silly because it's just wire, but that's what they're going for. Does it have original bars? Are your bars bent? You know, these never came with a crossbar with a pad, so if originality is important to you, you want to look for original bars, no crossbar. It would have the threaded ends for these bar ends. Original grips. Grips aren't necessarily deal breakers because you can still buy these grips. I think these are grips that I put on myself. What else? Leaking petcock, leaking carburetor. I noticed after I took this for a little ride yesterday that my carburetor is leaking. So probably I have a needle valve that is sticking, but it's probably time for a clean. And something else I didn't mention. I said that these are TRX rims, and I know that because this fat bead here looks like that. The aluminum rolls out and it mounts that way. On an ATC rim, it's this sort of design where the edge rolls in. You can stick your finger behind it. The fitment is fine. The offset is fine. I just run these because they look similar to OEM tires, and I don't have to feel bad about wearing down PV 701s. Okay, I don't know where I'm going to stick this in this video, but those were a couple points that I wanted to mention because those are things like when it comes to a rear carrier, this is an OEM 85 style carrier. I could put new bearings in that, or for about the same price, you can buy a whole new carrier and put that in. But it depends if you want to keep them original or not. When it comes to pivot bearings for the front, you can put in a new kit for like $45-50 from All Balls or another company. You can also buy these Delrin, hard plastic inserts. Who does that? Brian Malusian? I'll overlay who I'm thinking of. And of course, if you ever need carburetor kits, reach out to 223 Cycles. Check out my friend Vinny Staffa at Power Sports Surplus. Let's get all the advertisements here. Blue line decals. ATD, ATC. JR Trike Sports. Oh, so Greg Jr. at JR Trike Sports. And also Brad Rye makes gusset kits. We talked about the frame having weak spots. You can fix all of that with a gusset kit, and I know Greg has them, and so does Brad. DDR Slap is also a tremendous quality decal reproduction person, and check us out at Honda Hoarders and the legendary ATV Society. My buddy Marty over there is a great guy. So that officially wraps up everything I think I needed to say. I'm sure I missed something. So if I did, put it in the comments below. Let me know what I missed. And that's about it. So I think that's my 2 cents on this. And it's a lot of this information is going to carry over and be applicable to other models. Testing the grab bar, testing the bar ends, looking for case wear, looking for tire wear. Originality, originality will vary from machine to machine with what, gets swapped out and what parts get changed. So I think I'll do a few more of these and see how they're received. I didn't discuss dollars because what I quote today might change in 6 months. Things have gone up and up and up over the past few years. So if I put this video out 3 years ago, it would be outdated information now. So I'll probably steer clear of doing that. But that being said, I appreciate you. I thank you for watching. Make sure to tune in, like, and subscribe if you like this idea and you want to learn more. If you want me to do a particular model, please mention what you're looking for. Upcoming videos that I have planned will be on this machine I just imported. So if you want to catch that and hear the story on that, again, like and subscribe. I've been doing model year lineups. This machine that I'm getting in will complete the 84 model year lineup, so I will probably be doing that. And that might be the last one I do for the winter, because I don't know if you can tell, it is hoodie season. All the leaves are brown and the sky is gray, and and we are prepping for winter, which is the game we always play here in upstate New York, where I have to do, I can't do this nice angle presentation for my machines. I got to start doing Trike Tetris to get them put away for the winter, where I have to cram a lot of machines into a finite space. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Make sure to comment and share this if you've got a buddy that is looking for a 350X. Catch you later.